Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to discuss why the United States seems to have lost this war so fast and so definitively. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. I don't know what in the heck is going on. I got to start checking out my Rockfin show. I don't know if it's working. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, let's get going. You know, there are a lot of people discussing what's happening with the conflict. You know, we certainly get Donald Trump telling us on a regular basis he's winning. Then we get contradictory statements. It says he's winning, but we need some help. We're winning. We've decimated everything. We've destroyed all of their military, but we need some help. And I'm thinking those things are incongruent, shall we say, right? You look at it and it's like, at this point, it's kind of embarrassing because you see the U.S., the only thing it has, and this is what an empire has, a narrative. Right? We're powerful. We're the most powerful everywhere, ever, at any time. Everybody has to be afraid of us. Okay, fair enough. That's what you're going with. But what happens when that's all you have left? And it appears now that's all we have left. Look, Iran had a couple of things going on. Some clear and obvious strategic advantage, right? One of them is they're the home team, which means they don't have any supply lines, which means they can consistently fire out of their space. They don't need platforms. You know, they don't need a ship. That's a platform which you launch missiles or launch planes. They don't need airfields to launch planes. Excuse me. Not so much. They've got some airfields and they launch planes from them, fair enough, but that's not the heart and soul of their defensive capabilities, right? They just, so be it. They've got them. If they don't have them, they can still launch attacks. They can feed their soldiers. They can move them around. They can have them in barracks. They can hide them in houses. They can put them in the woods. It doesn't matter, right? They can put them underground. They're the home team, and so they have some natural advantages of being home. The home team always has natural advantages, and in the instance of a war, when the visitor is from like 6,000-7,000 miles away, I don't know how far it is. I'm going to say 5,000-6,000 miles away. When it's that far, there's massive advantages. Now, clearly the U.S. had staged a lot of stuff in that region. You know, we put a lot of men and material in that region, but the natural advantage of Iran allowed them to quickly address the few advantages that we had. We got a lot of bases, and we've got people, and we've got equipment. Now, keep in mind something. If you've been watching my video over the course of time, you know, for some time, I've been saying, and Andre Martianov and I've discussed this, you know, there was a time when bases were, oh my gosh, we're surrounded by bases, and people were afraid because there was U.S. bases all around them. However, as countries developed their surface-to-surface missile technology, wherein they could their surface-to-surface missiles could exceed the technological capabilities of the U.S. air defense, those bases became no longer a threat, but more a fat and ripe target. Okay. So now where we have said we're surrounding country X with bases, before country X had to be, oh no, they're going to choke us out. You know, the boa constrictor, we call bases, and we tighter and tighter until we squeeze into them. And that's what the U.S. empire tried to do. Now those bases are nothing but ripe targets. Technology has changed the nature of war. As it happens. Look, there was a time when one side had muskets and the other side had spears and bow and arrows, and the muskets won over spears and bows and arrows, right? There was the issue of range. I can do further, I can do more distance from further, more damage from further away to more people. I can get my rounds off more, and etc. Okay, so I have an advantage that I can use on the battlefield, technological advantage, and therefore I'm going to win the battles. Okay, fair enough. But when it comes to range, you're talking about what we had been traditionally talking about in range was the range of an aircraft. An aircraft flies over you and drops a bomb straight down. So that was your range. How much gas could the aircraft, did it, how much JP5, whatever jet fuel does it take for the airplane to fly to its destination for its target and fly back? And of course, you have to have very well-trained people who, can navigate, fly the plane, all of those kind of things, avoid anti-aircraft fire, all of those things, right? So what you had was air-to-ground attacks, and they required aircraft, and the aircraft became more and more technologically advanced to the point where they could do all kinds of interesting things. And we then added tankers. So now we can fuel the aircraft up and it can go even further. So that was your technology. Your technology, for the most part, was very expensive aircraft that had to be. Then we came up, of course, with stealth. Remember that? The F-117 stealth fighter. So we came up with these so-called stealth fighters. And what were they? They were going there to avoid radar because air defense was increasing. The technology of air defense was increasing. And now what we have is the increase in technology in evading air defense. Okay, that's where we were. Air defense, for some of us, has continued to increase in technology. Now, one of the interesting things about military technology is that military technology is driven by military strategy. Okay. So as the US said, we're going to get lots and lots and lots of planes, we'll fly them over you and we'll drop bombs on you. And so the Soviet Union looked at it and said, well, man, that's a lot of planes and that's very expensive. And some of our, adversaries said, we don't want to put that much in planes. Excuse me, pilots. Sorry for yawning. Probably didn't get enough sleep last night. Anyway, so what do? Well, if you're planning on using planes and bombing us, then we'll have to work on shooting the planes down. So what they focused on, it was air defense technology. Number one. I think in a case of Iran particularly, Iran looked at their potential problems with the U.S., a potential war with the U.S. And I think they looked at it and said, look, number one, we can't get the plane. We actually created this dynamic ourselves. They had some old planes, U.S. planes from when the Shah was in charge. And they wanted parts, but they couldn't really get parts because we wouldn't sell them to them. So we're like, we're going to stop them from getting an Air Force. Fair enough. We stopped them from getting an Air Force. However, they decided that they still wanted to get an Air Force. But they just wouldn't use planes. An Air Force. Force from the air, the ability to attack from above, right? Travel long distances and attack from above. So at that point, they said, well, we can't have an aircraft, but we do need long-range strike capability. That left them with one option initially, and that was ballistic missiles. So they said, okay, we need long-range strike capability. And I think specifically they knew they'd be attacked by Israel. They needed to retaliate. I think they also knew they'd be attacked by U.S. bases and they needed to retaliate. So I think their long-range strike capability was founded upon the strategy of not having a traditional Air Force. So if you've got a bunch of missiles that have to be launched from planes and you don't have planes, that's a problem. So that was ground launching, number one. Ground launch, surface-to-surface missiles. And so they worked as much as they could on getting as many of those missiles as they could and as accurate as they could. Right now, the other issue they had to address was the U.S.'s ability to use space-based ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and to locate where they had their bases and everything and then attack it. Well, they couldn't have that. Luckily for them, they have a topographical advantage, and that is it's a very large country and they got lots of mountains and all different kind of terrain, so they could, within the context of their multiple various different types of terrains, they could use the terrain to hide their attack points. Also, they were able to, because they have mountains, they were able to drill into the side of some of these mountains and then to make bases under the mountains that are so deep under the mountains and that are so protected by this very, very thick rock that some of them, even some of these bases, a nuclear bunker buster could not penetrate because they're just too deep under the earth. And of course, very hard to find because this is a country the size of Western Europe, 3 times the size of Germany. So it would be very, very difficult. So they came up with their plan for a specific enemy. Now, remember, the U.S. is planning on going all over the world and fighting everybody. They were a specific enemy, and that was the U.S.-Israel coalition. And of course, when we talk about planning, right, what they planned was, again, a multi-domain defensive attack, right? Number one, surface-to-surface missiles, but they found something out. They realized something somewhere down the line. Even a surface-to-surface missile is expensive. It's large. It has a large radar cross-section. What if we were to come up with something else that is effectively a missile? I'll put it like this. It's not a missile. It's not a plane. But it blows up. Now, what they came up with this, we'll use drones. We will use what? Aircraft that can be manually controlled or programmed. They can be either programmed to hit a specific target, or they can be manually controlled to do, FPV, first person viewing drones, right? So they came up with the idea that, look, there's 2 things about technology. Does it work and how much does it cost? So I can create things in a way that's inexpensive, that is effective, that can hit its target. And keep in mind, with the small drones, they have a small radar cross section. So to some extent, sometimes anti-air defense radar will register that as a bird or a flock of birds. It's just too small. It'll see it and just basically think, if that's the right word, interpret that particular radar cross section as wildlife. It's just too small to be a full-size plane or even a missile. So what they've done is they've said, technologically speaking, we got 2 issues. And that is, number one, we have to be able to deliver ordnance. But number 2, we have to be concerned with the cost of ordnance delivery. And these drones, the missile will be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million. This drone, 10, 20 grand. And then we have since found out that a $10,000 to $20,000 drone, I mean, you pack with 50 pounds of 50 kilograms, or basically 100 pounds of explosive, man, that's a mighty, mighty big blast. So what you do is you take this drone, you put basically like a nail in the front of it effectively. So when it hits something and that pushes it in, boom, it goes off, and you aim it at whatever. Put a little 2-cycle motorcycle engine on the back, and off this thing goes. Then it flies extremely low. Some of these things fly like 1,000 kilometers. Doesn't burn much gas. It can fly a long ways. And then once it gets there, kaboom. These things are nasty. And so what the Iranians did was they combined technology, right? We can make these drones, etc., with practicality, right? Because here's the bottom line. If I'm using a drone with a little old motorcycle engine on the back, let's be honest, how high tech does it have to be? The only thing that really has to be high tech is the navigation system. After that, I just need to think, sounds like a little moped. You hear them all the time, and when they hit, they explode like hell. So what you have is people saying, well, we want effectiveness. We want something to be effective. Therefore, the technology that's needed is not all that great to make it be effective, other than, of course, the navigation system, right? The guidance system. But outside of that, it can be low tech. So what they did is, for the purposes of saving money, they combined low tech propulsion systems with high tech navigation system, which is, circuit board or 2. And so now what do they have? You have high-tech things that are very expensive in limited quantities. They have combination high, low-tech things that are very inexpensive in very large quantities. And in the words of Joseph Stalin, quantity has a quality of its own. He was asked, what's better? What would you prefer, quantity or quality? And he said, quantity has a quality of its own. In other words, if I got enough drones, I don't care how great your defense system is or whatever. If I got quantity of drones. If I throw 150 drones at you, you ain't blocking them. You ain't blocking all of those drones. And once they start getting through, you got problems, right? And that's what the Iranians have done. And we saw for the first time a very interesting thing, for the first time that we've seen it, because we don't really see what's going on that much in the we hear, we get reporting, but we don't know completely what's going on in a special military operation in Ukraine. But what do we know? We do know that the Russians use these drones that are similar to the Shahed drones. That basically the Shahed drones were given to the Russians, that the Russians upgraded them to some point and then changed the name to the Geran of geraniums. And now apparently the Iranians have the upgraded version, which they don't even have to have, but they got them. And so now what you see is a lot of drones that can deliver ordnance in buzzing all throughout the area, and you just can't get them all. And they seem to be highly effective. And now the United States has admitted we don't have anti-drone technology. We don't have, so they're firing something at us, and it's like we might as well be throwing pickle jars at them. There's a bunch of drones coming in. The THAAD won't work against them, the Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System that we have, the Patriots that we have. Again, $1 million missile. You're going to fire $1 million missiles at a $10,000 drone. That is a mismatch that you're going to lose. And then you're going to be out of missiles, and they're still going to have 50,000 drones coming at you, which is the eventuality we're heading towards anyway. So what we're looking at is, technologically speaking, the U.S. is in a bad situation. But if you combine the technological advancements that the Iranians, of course, the Russians, et cetera, have with drones, with how they have instituted and reinstituted their plans of attack and defense based on the ability to utilize a high number of drones, it puts the United States in an untenable military position. Now we're going in, and there's drones coming from everywhere. We can't shoot them down. And they're blowing up like hell, which means we can't go in. We can't send troops in. We can. What do they do? The Iranians do when they attack a ship. They send drones and missiles. You block the missiles, the drones hit you. You know, it's like the punch where boom, where both fists come in like that, right? You pop, right, and you throw a high fist and a low fist, right, where that comes out. Boom. The high fist and the low fist means if you block this one, this gets you. And if you block the bottom one, the other one get you, right? I'm gonna throw both of them at you. I'm gonna throw, here's my drone, here's my missile. Boom, they're both coming at you, right? Block one, the other gets you, a high, low. And with the number of drones that I'm throwing at you, there's another part of this equation that is a long-term strategy, and that is I throw so many drones at you that in the immediacy, you can't block them all. Either the missiles or the drones are going to get you. But in the long term, strategically, I make you use all of your air defense missiles up. And guess what? Then you're naked. And then I'm going to have my way with you at that point. Now that you're naked, you have no air defense system. That's game, set, and match. I can throw a rock at you if I want to. It'll hit you at that point. You have no air defense. And we are rapidly approaching that. And I believe that there are some quarters of the U.S. Military, some bases in the U.S. military, and likely some parts of Israel that are there now, that are effectively naked, that are effectively without adequate air defense, if any at all. And that's what we're looking at. And I think that was the Iranians' plan. And now what we're looking at is the Iranians, even as they're in a war, they're continuing to build their air defense system. I think we're being lied to about something. The U.S. military and Iran say they control the skies, and and Israel. And if you remember, during the 12-day war, Israel said they controlled the skies. But 12 days after the war started, they were begging for mercy. But that ain't much control in the skies. And it was widely reported that the Israelis were simply firing missiles from Iraqi airspace that they dare not go into Iran itself because they were afraid of getting shot down. And based on what I've seen a lot of evidence, a lot of open source intelligence that seems to indicate that even right now, the United States and Israel are pretty much horrified to fly into Iraqi airspace. That even most of what we're seeing now is long range missiles, that they're the planes outside of Iranian airspace are firing missiles that then go into Iranian airspace themselves. And some of them being shot down and some of them are getting through. But I think we're getting propaganda about the US being able to fly at will in Iraqi airspace. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't believe for one second that's the case. The other thing that we're running into, I think, is that clearly, in my opinion, the Russians and the Chinese are involved with technology. I think they're involved in a number of things. I don't know anything, but I'm going to give you my evaluation of what's going on. I think, number one, that the Russians and Chinese, in all likelihood, this is my belief. I think that the US military computer systems and the US military communication systems are fully compromised, in my opinion. I would have to guess at this point, based on what I'm seeing, that the systems of the US, that the technological systems are very much compromised. And by compromised, I mean either the Iranians, the Chinese, or the Russians have gotten inside, in that they can maybe read emails, maybe see text messages, things like that. There were, at some point, the US military released a document to all the soldiers saying, look, take the following apps off your phone. Get rid of the location services on your phone. Why? Because they were, at that point, I think they found out that the Russians / Chinese / Iranians, some of them were hacked into the soldiers' phones. Well, that. They were all up in those phones, man. They were looking through, their cameras. They were weeding through their pictures. Oh, you got a cute girlfriend there. Oh my God. What the hell is she doing? They were doing that kind of stuff, right? They were looking at oh my God, you're on OnlyFans again, right? I think they were looking at that kind of stuff, and not the OnlyFans part, but you get the point. And so I think we are in a circumstance where, technologically speaking, the system of the US is compromised. And part of it is arrogance. The United States thought we are so technologically advanced above everyone. Our stuff could never be compromised. And I think there's more Russians and Chinese in our computer system than there are Americans. Let's start here. Let me add this. There's something else that you got to take into account. And the issue is hypersonic missiles, which means, in a nutshell, really, really fast missiles. But not all missiles are hypersonic. Hypersonic is a speed. A lot of ballistic missiles, upon reentry, when they're coming down, they reach hypersonic speeds. So just the speed alone can make it technically a hypersonic missile, but that doesn't mean that it's able to evade air defense. What you also have now is you have missiles that aren't even hypersonic, but they're really fast, and they're able to evade missiles. They have such things as they have shielding around the warheads and around the navigation system that make it hard for electronic warfare to interrupt. They have guidance systems that cause them to, make maneuvers. A missile will be going in, make sudden turns one way or the other, herky-jerky turns all over the place, so that basically, for those who don't know, if you got an air defense system, if you got a missile, and let's say it's going this speed, but the air defense system down here, I want to shoot this missile, my computer's got to determine when's the missile going to be right here. And I have to fire a missile and make sure, usually two, and make sure that when this is right here, that my missile meets it, right? And of course, people have described it as trying to hit a moving bullet with another bullet. It ain't easy, but it gets done, because they don't have to actually hit it per se most of the time. It's better if they do, but if they can get close to it and then explode, and then that'll blow it up and destroy it. And sometimes it doesn't, and it falls down and it hits something anyway and blows up when it hits the ground. But whatever the case may be, that's the issue of air defense. And of course, the Iranians, on their own and with help from their friends, have developed a significant number of missiles with up-to-date technology. And the number, as I said, quantity has a quality of its own. The number of missiles compared with the number of drones means one thing and one thing only. It means you're going to run out of air defense. Here's what it means. You're going to run out of air defense missiles before I run out of attack missiles and drones. So once you run out and I ain't out, there's nothing you can do to stop me from not just firing, but from hitting. I'm now at 100% hit rate. If my drone doesn't isn't a dud and doesn't blow up, if my drone isn't somehow malfunctioning before it gets there, if my drone or missile makes it to the target, it will impact on the target and it will explode and it will annihilate my target, at least damage it heavily. And so what we're seeing is the US, their ships, their bases, everything are starting to really run shallow of air defense capabilities. And now we're in big trouble. And now the only thing they can do, it appears to me, is lie to the American people. And I think that the other part of it is this. We're using dinosaurs. Okay, we're using dinosaurs. We're riding on dinosaurs. I mean, somebody says breaking Delta Force soldiers captured and killed in Iran for George Galloway. Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know. I've heard that, but I'm not sure. We've heard that now for a couple of weeks, so we don't know. You know, that's for George Galloway. But at any rate, so here's another thing to think about. What do you fire your weapon from, right? An aircraft is a platform to fire missiles or drop bombs. A submarine or a ship is a platform to fire missiles from, or torpedoes or whatever. A aircraft carrier is a platform which you launch planes, and the planes drop bombs or fly missiles. So what you have is you have your military platforms, be they aircraft, subs, you name it. And these things fire off things that go boom when they get there. The United States has traditionally said our floating bases, which is an aircraft carrier, right? An aircraft carrier that is used to project military power around the world. It says we don't have to have a base because we can send an aircraft carrier to your region and we got a base. And an aircraft carrier in and of itself means nothing, but it has a lot of aircraft on it, and those aircraft can cause great damage. And in addition to that, an aircraft carrier is going to have a whole suite of boats that come along with it. They call it a carrier strike group. And these boats are tasked with A, defending the carrier with air defense and other things, but B, also many of them have surface-to-surface missiles, and they can fire, I don't guess you'd call them sea-to-surface missiles, and they can fire those things at targets ashore or other ships, whatever, anti-shipping missiles. So you have this whole carrier strike group that has capabilities. And there was a time when that was dominant. However, those ships are huge, and they ain't real fast. And, in the context of missiles. Planes, yeah. There are some planes that can outrun some missiles. Not so much anymore. But the bottom line is these aircraft, these ships are huge, which makes them what? Just like I said about the bases. There was a time when having a lot of bases surrounding you was a liability because, hey, man, they're going to attack me from those bases. But now they're a fat, ripe target that you can use surface-to-surface missiles to wipe out quickly. There was a time when people didn't have the strike capabilities to fire anti-shipping missiles and drones 500-600 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers away. We know that from the Russians. Missiles, the Kinzhal and some other missiles that they have like 1,700, 2,500 kilometer range. So they can sit 1,000 miles away, dead on, with a hypersonic missile that's you have no defense against. Okay, they can hit moving objects, that can move and do all kinds of things. You're finished if they fire at you. You're done, right? So now you have carrier strike groups in which, if a hypersonic Kinzhal missile is fired at a carrier, that carrier is in deep and serious trouble because that missile's coming, and that carrier doesn't, and the whole strike group has nothing that can defend against that missile, and it's going to get hit, and brother, it's going to bring some damage at 10 or 15,000 miles an hour. So we have a U.S. that has these carrier strike groups that at one point, before the missile technology and drone technology reached the level it is now, They were dominant military, what would you call them, platforms that people had to be afraid when they saw. Now, of course, what we're hearing recently is one of these ships that is alleged to have been hit by missiles and drones. All we were told was that they had a laundry room fire. Excuse me, a laundry room fire. That, I guess, somebody forgot to unclog the lint from the dryer. I don't know, but I don't think sensible people don't believe that. Come on, it wasn't a laundry room fire. Maybe it was a coincidence at exactly the same time they were shooting drones and missiles at you. You had a laundry room fire. That doesn't make sense. Seems to me that this gigantic ship was hit. And here's what we've learned, hopefully. The days when you could bring a gigantic ship into a theater of battle and execute a battle plan based on a gigantic ship are behind us. The missile technology is too advanced now. If you bring a large ship in the region, if you bring large ships in the region, they're going to have problems. The likelihood is you're going to lose some of them. I have seen rumors now. I don't know. I don't know how true any of these things are, but I saw rumors today that more American ships, or maybe that the Iranians were saying that they had struck some more American ships, severely damaged, sunk. I don't know. I'm still looking to see what I can find, but none of that surprises me. I'm not shocked. I mean, I'm horrified by it. As I said, I've got family members who are, distant family members, but, family members nonetheless, who are in the theater, and I don't want to see them lose their lives. I want them to come home, small children and their loved ones and all that kind of stuff. Who wants to see that? This war is terrible. These people are victims of American imperialism. The soldiers are victims. Nobody asked for this. This is not defending the United States. This is not defending America. This is not defending our homeland. This is a combination of Israel saying, oh, come in here and help us get the Israeli homeland or some such crap as that. And of course, these neocons saying, hey, why don't we take Iran? They got lots of oil. Yummy. We'll get all that oil. You know what I mean? So that means that the soldiers that die here, are they're victims of the U.S. empire. They're victims of the foreign policy of the U.S. empire that doesn't stand up for us. They're being used as cannon fodder, and that is unacceptable. And what we're finding is this: we're using them for cannon fodder in a war that we never had a chance of winning. You know how many people like me and Larry Johnson, right on my show, I don't know what he said elsewhere, but on my show, he says, we're going to lose this one. And I said, we're going to lose this one. And a lot of people said, why? Because it's obvious. Our air defense capabilities are unacceptable. And what I mean by unacceptable, I mean, they are not, let me put it a different way. They are inadequate, given the technology of today's military, technology and capabilities of the modern military. So what are we looking at now? We're looking at the United States does not have the technological capability to compete in today's military environment. And the best they can do is hide it from Americans. Most Americans are watching news and they have no idea that their government's bases are getting turned to rubble. I'll put it like this. We're being chased right out of the Middle East. We can't use our bases. Our bases are getting smashed, slammed, and torn to pieces. God only knows how many soldiers are hurt. They take the soldiers out of the bases. They put them in hotels. The Iranians find out which hotel they're in and hits the hotel and blasts them. And now they're talking about we're going to bring in some Marines and take Karg Island. There's no chance of that. Now, and to show you how witless our leaders are, we have President Trump now and his others talking about, well, we'll open the Gulf of Hormuz. They don't even understand the dynamics there. There ain't no opening the Gulf of Hormuz. That's not going to happen. It's not even an option. If you sail through the Gulf of Hormuz, they won't even have to fire a missile. They can use artillery. You're in artillery range. I mean, I don't know if you've been paying attention to Gulf of Hormuz, but every few minutes you can look on X or wherever and find some ship on burning up where the Iranians said you can't go through. And when they try to go through, they hit them with a missile and blow them to smithereens or a drone or whatever the case may be. When they say you can't go through, you can't go through. And if the U.S. says the U.S. has been begging, Trump, who says he won, has been begging the Europeans, saying, look, guys, you got to help me. And the Europeans are like, we're just being realistic, even though they can't be realistic with Russia. Not allowed to do that. But in Iran, they're saying, man, if we send a ship through there, they're going to blow it to smithereens. We can't do it. We can't do it. So now Donald Trump is unhappy with them because they don't want to commit, I mean, absolute, obvious, and clear suicide for their soldiers. You're going to go through this skinny waterway that's got missiles and drones, I mean, just lined up on the shore waiting. In fact, the Iranians, who are always trolling, literally said, if any ship wants to go through, any of these commercial ships wants to go through, if you are escorted by an American naval ship or an Israeli naval ship, we'll grant you free passage. In other words, you got a tanker, go on through. As long as you bring an American or Israeli ship with you. If you bring an American Israeli ship, guarantee you this, we ain't shooting at you, but we're going to blow them out of the water. I mean, so they're forever trolling. Why? Because they have the capacity to do this, right? You've got, what they have done is this. They have done a combination of technology. Look, how about this? Sometimes technology is this. What is the best technology for what you're doing? Sometimes, you know, it's not that you have the latest and greatest technology. It's Stanley, right? The right tool for the right job. Then you look at it and you say, based on what I need, this is the right tool. Are there more high-tech tools? Sure, but I don't need those high-tech tools. I need a screwdriver right now. I don't need a drill that you hit it in. I just need a little teeny screwdriver just to adjust the, the flow of oil on my carburetor. So tweak a little bit this way, a little bit that way. I'm adjusting that carburetor, a little teeny. I don't need a big drill. No, the right tool for the right job. And so what the Iranians and their obvious allies have done is said, we got the right tools, right? We have combination of air defense. We have that they're still working on, of course, but they've had some success. But they have drones and missiles, and they have extreme accuracy. But there's three things of targeting. Do you have the capacity to deliver ordnance? Yes. You have the capacity to deliver the ordnance. You got the drone or the missile. Number two, do you have the ability to find good targets, good solid targets that will win you the war, targets that will significantly hurt your enemy? Yes, but there's another thing, and this is one of the things that's happening. Do you have real-time targeting, right? Do you have all of these space-based surveillance systems that can, read the license on a car? Well, the Chinese and the Russians have that. The Russians have the GLONASS system. Chinese have Beidou. Trust me when I tell you this, if a flea crawls on somebody's back, the Russians and the Chinese see it. Now, you know what's going on. Look, you have the missiles here, which connected to your computers. You have all of your reconnaissance, ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance system set up. And you say, oh, we just saw some American planes. They took them out and they parked them here. Instantly, within seconds, that computer picks up these things, oh, we've got targets. It transmits it to the computers. The computer then targets imprints the target into the missile. Off the missile goes. You wonder how there was 5 of these K-130, whatever they are, KC-130s, the strata tankers. 5 of them got blown up in Saudi Arabia the other day at a U.S. air base. How did that happen? That's easy. The Chinese and or Russian satellites picked them up. Oh, they've moved 5 of these planes out onto the tarmac for whatever reason. Because they're usually in hangars or whatever, usually fortified hangars of some type. They can take missile hits. I guess they were going to fly them. They brought them out. Okay, they brought them out. They're probably loading them up with fuel. They're ready to go, right? They bring them out. What happens? Immediately, the space-based targeting systems pick it up. You got AI, etc. Well, there's movement at this base. It's always scanning that base. It's scanning these targeting systems are constantly scanning the bases, looking for targets, scanning this base, and all of a sudden it sees movement. It sees planes. It says target, downloads the target the information into the targeting computer, which is connected to the missiles. Boom, right into the missiles, fire. So by the time you get out there in real time, computer sees it. Computer sends it to the targeting computer. It gets imprinted in the missile. That missile's in the air. So the U.S. is not used. Look, the Afghanis couldn't do that. The Libyans and the LB, they couldn't do that. But now you have real-time targeting and ordnance delivery systems that says as soon as you screw up, I think if in fact Netanyahu and his people are, were targeted and annihilated, that's no doubt what happened. A combination of probably spies on the ground, okay, of human intelligence, and or a compromised system where the Russians, Chinese, or Iranians compromised the computer systems and or the phones of Israeli leaders, and found out where they were going to have a meeting. See what they could have done, because the rumor is that we hear everywhere is that there was a meeting of the Israeli top people, their command staff, as it were, Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben Gvir, all of these people, head of the Mossad, head of the Air Force, that they all came together. This is what we were told. They came together at one spot, which may or may not have been Netanyahu's house. That the Iranians, for whatever reason, through ISR, determined this is a big meeting. Now, my what I think is this, and this is possible, that they had probably all of their phones, maybe their systems, communication system, they had compromised them, and they were listening, knowing, okay, I'm not going to go after one. I'm going to try to wait till they all get together. Guess what? They're all meeting tonight at 8 at old Beatty's house. I know before that, everything's set. My missiles are set. My hypersonic missiles are ready to make it happen. I will follow all their phones. I follow all of them. I see they're there. They're all together in a bunch. Everything's coming together. Birds in the air. The targeting data is already in the missile, and I'm using hypersonic missiles because I'm going to make sure when this missile hits, maybe two, but when this missile hits, there ain't going to be nobody left there but a ghost. I'm guessing that if, in fact, the Israeli leaders, if some of them survive, they've gone in hiding, and they could be that Netanyahu's in hiding if he survived. Possible that he didn't survive, that he's somewhere gone to that great beyond, drinking his AI coffee in the sky, right? That he's history. He's done. He's moved on. But again, what are we talking about? We're talking about the latest technology. We're talking about the capability to compromise your system and to use the system to target your leadership, to do exactly what they said they were going to do. We're going to do a decapitation strike. Well, two can play at that game. And what that does from now on, the United States has to say, we've been used to doing decapitation strikes. We better not do them. Why? Because the other side's going to do a decapitation strike. And the Iranians, when asked, well, you think Netanyahu's alive? They said, yeah, what difference does it make to us? If he is, we'll continue to hunt him until we kill him. So the Iranians' position is, if he is alive, he ain't going to be for long. If he ain't alive, oh, well, it doesn't matter to us. We're going to do whether he is or not. We got things to do. We got work to do. And we're going to put in work here. We're putting in work. But if he happens to be gone, all the better. We're monitoring. Look, I think they already know. Again, because I believe that the U.S. and the Israel communications and computer systems are compromised. I believe they're fully compromised. And I believe that the Iranians already know whether or not Netanyahu is alive. I believe that they're very well aware of it. And they don't have any reason to brag or not brag. They don't have any reason, because here's the thing about it. If the systems are as compromised as I believe they are, they don't want to brag and say we know for sure, because they don't want the Americans to know that they've compromised their system. They want to pretend like they don't know anything. That way, if they pretend like they don't know anything, the Americans and the Israelis will never know that their system is as compromised as it is. That the whole time we were there, they were listening and looking at every single thing we did, and we had no idea that was the case. I believe that. And I think one of these days, people are going to wake up after this and say, holy crap, they were on top of everything. They knew it all the whole time. And which means you don't have a chance. If your enemy is inside the gates, if the phone call is coming from inside the house, if they're sitting there with an open listening, there's Trump calling back again. Oh my God, what's happening? We're screwed, boss. We're screwed. We're running out of stuff. All right. And then the Chinese and the Russians are sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, listening. Hey, did you listen to this? Right? Recording everything, recording who's where they are, what time they're going to be there, what their plans are. There were rumors that prior to the start of this military operation, that the Russians, through a compromised system, had acquired the U.S. battle plan and given the whole thing to the Iranians. Well, based on how poorly it's going for the Americans, I ain't saying that's the case, but it might as well be. And the Americans are in deep and serious guana, because how long can they keep saying to the American people, we're winning when they're losing? And gas is going to go really, really bad here shortly. The economy is going to start to melt down, 2008, 1929 style. And the American people are going to say, why is this happening? I just turned on the MSNBC, CIA, and they and Fox and Friends, and they told me we're winning. Well, if we're winning, then the economy shouldn't be in meltdown mode. And why are all these soldiers coming home dead? I thought we were winning. Well, we ain't winning. And, for a while, I kind of thought to myself, we're kind of, when it comes to technology, and particularly ISR, with the combination, because this is the, what is it? Zbigniew Brzezinski's nightmare, the triumvirate of Russia, China, and Iran. The nightmare of Zbigniew Brzezinski. He's sweating and rolling over in his grave, right? In fighting all of those three, I think we put ourselves in a position where currently we're able to lie our way out of it. Currently, we're able to say we're winning, and then just Trump, says, please don't show the truth on the media. Don't let people see the truth. Just let them hear me say we're winning, and that's fine. But losing never stays at a steady pace. You know what I mean? Losing a war eventually goes really bad. The old saying about the rich guy who went broke, and they say, how'd you lose all your money? He said, slowly and then suddenly. So right now we're in the slowly part, but there will be the suddenly part. We're in the part right now where we can still lie to the American people and tell them things ain't as bad, ain't all that bad. Things are great. Things are not bad at all. We're winning the war. We can say that. I suspect the time is coming when our ships are limping home, when our planes are shot down, Reaper drones shot down, economy shot to hell, and people are going to look at it and say, well, if this is winning, what would happen if we lose? People are going to be like, if we're winning, yeah. Oh, our ships are being hit. Sure, that's what happens when you win. And I just want some more planes shot down again. Sure, that's our winning ways. Ships shot, and and they're going to look at it and they're going to say, we're completely out of the Middle East. We've been driven. Listen, we're getting driven out of our bases. We're getting driven out of our embassies. So here's my question: what happens when we wake up one day, and we may be almost there now, and we've been driven out of all of our bases in the Middle East, and we are close to that right now, and we need to get the hell out because our soldiers are getting hell rained down upon them, right? What happens when we wake up one day and it's like, okay, what's as far as our bases? Nah, we don't have anybody in any bases anymore in the Middle East. The bases have all been turned to rubble. Oh, okay. How's things going with the embassies? Yeah, we don't really have anybody in the embassies anymore because they've been all turned to rubble. Oh, okay. What about our ports where we have all of our ships? Yeah, pretty much we had to abandon those and put our ships out to sea. They're all in like India's port or something. So what do we have right now in the Middle East as far as ships, as far as planes, as far as tankers, as far as surface-to-surface missiles, bases? All right, give me an update. What do we have? Let me see. 3, 12, 12, yeah, 24, 16, none. We got none. Hey, I thought you were counting how many bases we had. Oh, no, I was counting how many got blown up. We got none. 0. Bupkis, we have a bagel. That's what we got, a bagel, a big 0. The time is coming. And how is that a war? At that point, where we have been, our bases have been blown up, our ships, we have nothing in the region that can fight. We have to have our planes outside of the region, fly into the region, or close to it, fire weapons, and then leave the region, where we will effectively have been driven out of the region. What's the point of fighting anymore? And the Straits of Hormuz is closed. Here's my prediction. If we don't get our act together and just get the hell out and give Iran whatever they're asking for, if I was president, I would go to Congress. I'd say, we need a meeting, guys. I would. I'd go to Congress. I'd say, I got some bad news and worse news. The bad news is we got 24 hours to live. The worst news is I forgot to tell you yesterday. You know, that old doctor's joke, right? I would say, look, we're in a bind. There ain't no way to win this war. But there's something far worse. The petrodollar is going to be destroyed, and our economy is going to collapse. But we can't avoid that. So here's what we can do. Maybe we can avoid that. We can try to avoid that. They'd say, President Nixon, what's the plan? I said, I'm glad you asked. We're going to call Iran. Say, what do you want? And Iran's going to say what they already said. Number one, I want 500 billion. Number two, because I want compensation for all the dirt that you've done to me over the years. Number two, I want you out of the region. Number three, I want Israel closed down. Then I will come back to them and say, tell you what, we'll get out of the region. Number one, out, done, serious, goodbye, close down all of our bases. Somebody put the flag down and turn the lights off when you leave. Number one, we're going to do that. Number two, you want 500 billion, I'll bargain. How about 250? You take 265? So I'll bargain with them on the number. They want 500 billion. If we get out of the base, I think they'll take 2. So we can get that. Now, as far as Israel, I'll say, we're going to tell them that you're not getting anything else. We're going to say to the Israelis, look, you get no more weapons from us, and we're going to have to, shut this operation down. And if you want to live, we're going to have to cut your military off so that you can't attack anybody, so that you can't fight anybody. So what we'll do is this, give you 250 billion, we'll get the hell out, and we'll cut the military aid all 100% to Israel. I'd make them an offer. All they can do is take it. That's an offer that the Iranians would have to listen to. You make that offer, the Iranians, I think if you make that offer, the Iranians are going to say, I'm listening to you now. But how do I know you'll do it? Oh, by the way, all sanctions will lift them. Every sanction lifted immediately. Upon signature on this document, they are lifted. And at any point, you can commence fire as if they need permission. If we don't do any of this, you can commence fire. But all of this stuff is done. I'd say to Congress, look, that's our only hope. If we don't do that, we don't have a hope. We can't win the war. The petrodollar is going to die, so our economy is going to collapse, and we're going to make 1929 look like the heydays, the roaring 20s, you're right? So what are we going to do? It's up to you, Congress. My suggestion, we call the whoever, the Russians, the Omans, whoever, and make the offer to Iran and say, this is what we're willing to do. I think the Iranians will take it. And I think they would. I think they would, because it acknowledges their agency. It acknowledges that they have a right to exist. And of course, it acknowledges that they won the war. Vae victis, right? Woe be to the vanquished. If you lose the war, the winner of the war will impose the ending on the loser, right? At least rather than have them impose it on us, we get an opportunity to have a say. They impose it, it's 500 billion. If we offer them, it's 250. I'll say 200 I'm going to offer to them and say, look, dudes, we ain't got 500 billion, but we got 200 that we can deliver that to you. We'll do that. We'll do 200. But you got to give us this, or that. If you're saying you're going to drop all the sanctions and you're going to give them some money, they're listening. And you're getting the hell out, they're listening. You can get a deal. But at that point, we're not an empire anymore. And at that point, we're acknowledging that we lost the war. And at that point, we're acknowledging that we don't dominate the world. Now, whether we acknowledge it or not is not relevant. Technologically speaking, let me say this. This war was over in the first week. It was established in week 1 that they had the technological capacity to dominate the region and that we didn't have the defensive capability to stop them. Okay. And if you've been listening to me, I got to say this. If we lost to Iran in a week, going on 3 weeks, this war's lost. We're out on our feet. People say, oh, no, it's still going on. Yeah, okay, fine. Tell me about that 2 or 3 weeks. The war's lost. We lost to them. Let me ask you something. Can you even begin to compare the military might of Iran with that of either Russia or China? No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't even begin to compare the military might of Iran with Russia or China. We wouldn't last hours. We last a week with Iran, and really effectively we lost, and now all we got is propaganda and begging for help. Hours. The United States versus China or Russia, hours is how long that would take, and not a lot of hours. So you get my picture. You get my point. We're, as my thumbnail said, we're in a horse and buggy now. We've got arrows and spears, and they're in a brand new sports car. That horse and buggy ain't keeping up with the sports car. Them days is over. And our only hope would be to bite our tongues and to go in and ask for some mercy. And Iran ain't got no mercy, but at least we could pay them and get the hell out of Dodge, because that's done. It's game, set, and match. So how does this end? I understand Iran. I saw something where somebody was asking Trump, do you think the Israelis use nukes? Oh, no, the Israelis aren't going to use nukes. Here's the thing. Let me just say this. For those of you who say the U.S. will use nukes or Israel will use nukes, Iran has said what their response would be, right? Okay, because I heard the Americans or the Israelis will use nukes to end it. Well, it depends on what you mean by end it. If they've made it clear, Israel has a nuclear power plant. If you throw a nuke at me, I'm going to vaporize that power plant with hypersonic missiles, which means you have a meltdown, which means Israel, little old Israel, the size of New Jersey, will be Chernobyl and mostly uninhabitable, won't it? Uninhabitable. And of course, all of the U.S., if you use a nuke or Israel, all of this infrastructure for oil and gas in the region, it's all gone. It ain't coming back. It'll take you a decade to build it. So here's the bottom line. You use a nuke, you might as well turn it on yourself, because you have ended your society. You will be back in the Stone Age because you ain't going to have energy. What is the United States going to do with no energy? Well, we have some that we produce ourselves, but where are we going to sell anything to when Europe will have none? They'll be building fires. They'll be burning their furniture and cooking their neighbors. What's the Epstein class? That won't bother them a little bit. But for the rest of us, we don't want to do it. So anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. I will be back on around 8. I'm hosting an event tonight. Not hosting an event, but co-managing an event where I want to have Scott Ritter and Anthony Aguilar and the guy McGinnis, the soldier that was beaten up. The same kind of thing we did last week. Some various Jose Vega and people that are running for office and stuff like that. And we're just going to have an event from 8 to 9:30. Feel free to come join us if you can. And if you don't, that's fine. It's Garland and Scott and friends. How's that? Thanks everybody for being kind enough to take time out of your busy day. I think everyone should. By the way, thanks. I forgot. I got to thank all my Patreon people, my PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee people, the people who take time out and take their money out to keep this channel going. Cash App, whatever the case may be. And of course, as I always say, I got a P.O. Box. So for those who want to send a mail, snail mail of any kind, P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, Maryland 21061. Share this on all your social media platforms. Make sure you follow me. I am the THE Garland Nixon, not Garland Nixon. Yes, that's mine. Yes, it's verified. Twitter's locked me out. I got 2 Twitter accounts. I pay for both of them, and they're both verified that it's me. But oddly enough, the only one I can access is the Garland Nixon. How crazy is that? I'm out.